All right, welcome back to You're Absolutely Right. I'm here with Wes, and we are going to talk about our predictions for 2026. We're a little bit late since we're kind of into January here, but we're going to talk about our predictions regarding software engineering, specifically what we're involved in, not like what's going to happen with LLM models and stuff like that. Just what kind of we're kind of seeing at work. So, let's kick it off. All right. So, my first prediction for 2026, it's not really a prediction. I guess it's more of like advice, but I think the number one priority for engineers in 2026 should be optimizing their agentic dev tooling. Um, in just working with AI and seeing how much it's accelerating its usage in the workplace, I'm seeing personally a lots of ways that I could be going even faster than just using Claude Code or AMP to like kind of spit out the code, but more like optimizing my code base for using it. So there's a really good article by Ramp about how they built their own background agent, and I'll find a link to it somewhere. But basically, they did all of this interesting stuff to optimize their code base that AI knew how to like set things up, run tests. It was in like a sandbox, all this kind of stuff. So that's my number one thing is just being faster with AI and using it more.
Yeah,
Wes,
I
what's
think we're going to
yours?
see a lot of companies investing heavily into that. Sandboxes are going to be huge, and being able to just set up your agentic environment so that agents can run on your code base securely is going to be a big deal for these big corps. Because a lot of things are just kind of running cowboy coding, just sort of letting your agent run against the code base that has access to all the all your websites and or like anything that your computer has access to. And so a lot of people are going to start clamping down on what should be allowed and enforcing specific AI tooling as well.
Yeah. This is the article if you want to check it out on Ramp Engineering, why we built our own background agent.
Cool. So yeah, my first one, I think review tools are going to be huge. And what's the next GitHub going to be? I don't think GitHub's going anywhere, but I think there could be a new incumbent coming in for Git source control dealing with agents if GitHub doesn't keep up to speed on how agents are working and coming up with new ways of doing it. But I think we're going to see a lot of review tools that aren't necessarily Git based, or they're not Git forward, right? They're about reviewing your code before it gets into Git because you want to review what the LLM does and not have to always wait for it to get into GitHub to do PR reviews or stuff like that. So I think we're going to see a huge boom in review tooling and even source code management this year.
Yep. And you have a review tool that you're going to share later, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. So look out for that. All right. The next one for me is I think jobs are still going to be hit hard. So, but in specific ways. So we have Dario Amodei, who's the CEO of Anthropic, and he's saying all of software engineering is going to be automatable in 12 months. I think he said this at Davos. And he said this before. I think he said it like a year and a half ago, and his timeline was also very short, and it didn't
Yeah.
happen. So we'll see. I don't actually think it's going to be quite like that. But what I do think is going to happen, I'm personally seeing at work, the people who are really leaning into using AI, engineering and non engineering, are just shockingly more productive and producing value much more than the people that are working kind of like the old way. So I was telling you that I'm seeing some engineers who are taking like a week to put up a PR that I could literally have Claude do in like 5 minutes. And part of it is they're like onboarding and they're reading docs and they don't, they have to get used to the code because they're new, stuff like that. But honestly, none of that is an excuse anymore because you don't even need to know the code base to just do something simple. You have AI read the code base and explain it to you, and you should be able to get up to speed much faster and be much more productive. And that includes not just writing code, but also there was a PM that had an idea for what he wanted a product to look like. And normally PMs would be writing up a spec file and then waiting for engineers or waiting for design to design it, engineers to build it. He built an entire working prototype in like ChatGPT or whatever in like an hour that looked amazing. And so then now we all were like, oh, now I totally see what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
we're going to implement this. And it's not that it replaced the engineer because we still had to adapt it to our complex system and integrations and everything. There was a lot more work to be done. But that type of thing, like, is what you have to be doing now. Otherwise, there's not much reason for someone to keep you, a company keep you there over someone who's doing those type of things.
I love that use case of a PM because it saves so much time of like trying to write out what's in your brain and then explain it to everybody. And then people don't get it. So then you have to keep explaining it, keep having meetings to go over what it is and why it is. Like just show a prototype and people are able to like, oh, I get it. I can see that. Yes, let's go do
Mm-hmm.
that. Right. Then you don't even have to have any meetings basically at that point. So yeah, I
God, I
mean,
would love that. That's
I
I
know.
don't see that ever happening, but
Maybe you can drastically have instead of 10 meetings, you only have one meeting or two meetings. But yeah, I mean, if you're not using AI, you're going to really struggle. And I've seen the same thing
cooked.
too. I've tried to onboard people and it's just like ten days for like a 2-line change
Hmm.
in the code base. And I know they're doing other things too, but again, like, so I think it's going to have to still be like, where's the balance of how much do we do versus how much do we teach people how to use AI effectively to onboard them, to get them to the levels too, and then how much do they do it on their own as well. All right, but yeah, agreed. My next one, I this, and I very well could be wrong with this, but I actually think models and their overall smartness is going to slow down a little bit in their general smartness level. I already think they're unbelievably smart now. I think what we're going to see improvements on is skills and stuff like that. I think skills are a hack right now. They're really basically a prompt injection. And I think we're going to see over this next year that skills aren't going to be as necessary anymore. In the same way that like MCP is not as necessary, like, and you don't need like plan mode as much anymore. The LLM can just plan. Like, I think it's going to be a vast improvement on those things, but I think the overall smartness of the models might slow down just a little bit in the long run. I could be way wrong,
See,
but
yeah, I think I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one because I also thought the models were slowing down last year, and then all of a sudden, like Gemini 3 and Opus 4.5 came out and just blew everyone away. And
mhm.
so I don't think that we've reached the end of the scaling laws where like they can just put twice as much training time and twice as much money into a model and it's, X% better, whatever it is. I still don't think we've reached the end of that. But I do agree that maybe at this point it is going to show up in more subtle ways, like not having to do as many like workarounds like you described.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there may not be a huge shift feeling in how smart the model is, but small things we'll see improving.
Yeah. And another thing I would add is we talked about this last time, but the beyond just getting smarter, AI is just going to be eating up more levels of human knowledge work. And so beyond things where it like code, where it just has this really strong reinforcement loop of like it's either right or it's wrong. Things with knowledge work are much more subtle, whether they're right or wrong. So it's harder to train the model to do those things properly. But I do think they're going to figure out ways to do that. And then it's going to start eating into more of the stack of the knowledge work. Um, yep. Okay. So let's see. My next one is I think cost is going to catch up and kill a lot of projects in companies and startups. Right now, a lot of the cost of LLMs is subsidized from the LLM provider side, both and internally in companies and startups. At least what I'm seeing internally, and I think is true of most companies right now, is that they're just like figure out a way to build stuff with AI and just use it as much as you can in your personal workflow. And cost is not really a concern because really like companies are just looking for these growth levers. And so any amount of investment is justified if you find a big growth lever. But I think as we move on and we see that some of these things that we're building are not actually resulting in positive ROI, especially when you factor in the costs that we've been kind of ignoring. The projects are just going to be like, nope, we're done, you know? And I don't really see that happening with agentic coding because I do think that there's always going to be a return on that, or at least there is, in my opinion, right now, although it's hard to quantify. But the consumer facing products or B2B products that are like conversational AI or whatever that are not really adding any value, but are starting to be a big cost center, I think companies and investors both are going to start being like, where's the revenue? And if it's not there, kill it.
Exactly. Yeah, totally agreed. Agentic coding, that's not going anywhere. That's here to stay forever. I mean, the faster you can get out code, the better, and companies will always love that. But yeah, if you're building a product that's based around an AI product and it's not making any money, you better be worried about that or figuring out real fast how to make it make some money. All right. I think we're seeing a lot with agent orchestrators right now with Ralph and all these other things, and a lot of people actually building custom UIs around all these agents. I don't think that's the final answer. I think there's still got to be a different medium for this. And again, I think the agents are going to be smart enough anyway to do this for us. So they're just going to keep getting better and better at running long tasks, running parallel tasks that you don't need to spin up a whole orchestrator that's managing 10 different parallel Claude codes or codexes or whatever. Claude and Codex and everybody's just going to do that for you automatically. So I think this is, we're seeing, I think, a lot of band-aids or just hacks to make things better for us right now that are going to be totally gone by the end of the year.
Yeah, 100%. And I would take a slightly different view of that. I agree. But also in the like product side of things, I've been doing a lot of work orchestrating agents. And now I'm at the point where it causes so many problems to use multi-agent that I'm doing everything I can to avoid multi-agent now. And that includes like skills to kind of inject context instead of transferring to another agent, because the complexities of going from agent to agent, where you lose context and you lose tools that you had before, and the customer really wants to do something that the other agent would have been good at, and then vice versa, and all this kind of stuff. It just causes all these problems in the same way that like you talk to a really good, I don't know, employee at a company. If it's one person who knows a bunch of stuff who can just walk you through everything, that is much better than being like, I talked to the salesman and the salesman sent me over to the mechanic, and now I have a question that the mechanic can't answer, but the salesman could answer, and et cetera, et cetera. It's just a better experience. And as the models get better and the context windows get bigger and we get better tooling for just like keeping context more focused, we will not be using multi-agent very often.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, use the tools now if you need to, but don't get so attached to it that you're stuck if you need to move out or it just doesn't need to be used anymore. I still think your best gain is just really getting to know Claude, AMP, Codex, and using the primary agents and getting to know their ins and out as much as you can.
Yeah. And still, most in agentic coding, most of the gains are from just going from doing nothing to just firing up Claude Code or AMP or whatever. And the rest of it, you'll figure out later. But really, if you haven't gotten started, just start there.
Just do it.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got?
Okay. So I think that we're going to see some of the negative impacts of AI starting to crop their ugly, or starting to show their ugly faces. One of those things would be like thinking that speed is the most important factor. So we have agentic coding. Leadership's going to be pushing for, hey, let's get stuff out fast. Engineers are going to be sort of envying or like fearful of people who are pushing more code than them. So they're going to push code faster. I saw the Primeagen just had a video, and he's like, when did we decide that speed was the most important factor in lines of code? Like, we've always known that lines of code is a terrible measure. So why did we all of a sudden just start thinking that that was the good measure again? And that's really smart because speed is important, but it is far from the most important thing. And especially these non-technical people like PMs, when they can use something like Claude Code or Lovable to just fire up a demo site quickly, they're going to think that that speed is constant throughout an entire project. And then they're going to be like, hey, speed this up. Like, what's happening? I can do this in ChatGPT faster than you're getting this to me. And it's like, hold on, dude. Like, wait, this is a complex system. The speed is not constant from prototype and mock-up to like production. It's the last 10% takes like longer than the first 90% with AI. So, yeah, and then like thinking AI is going to solve all the problems, like overusing it. So engineers and I guess everyone really stop using their brains and start just using AI for everything. I think we're going to see a lot of just vanilla software that is so boring and is not interesting or differentiated at all, has no taste, has no creativity. And we're going to kind of come back around to this point where we're like, wait a minute, actually, the thing that mattered is the same as it was before. It's all that stuff that's not the code, like the taste and the creativity and the differentiation and all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. Delegate your work, not your thinking. I think Torsten Ball coined that a long time ago. But I mean, that's how I view everything. The minute I start trying to delegate my thinking to an AI, I know I need to stop and step back and take a minute and just think for a while to really make sure it's the thing. But if I just keep trying to hammer it with like, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, fix this, fix that, I know I'm just delegating my thinking to the agent instead of actually understanding what the problem is and guiding it appropriately to the fix. Um, so you got to think. You can't just use an AI. Kind of along that, I this maybe isn't a great prediction, but I think CSS and style and taste will become way more important. Like it, LLMs are really good at spinning out front end designs, and they can do a great job of it, and it looks great and all that. But they all do kind of have the same feel. And I think the more you dive into some tools like advanced CSS or, I mean, even like 3D rendering, if that fits your app, like just still being creative and learning how to use those tools, that then you can guide an LLM to use more advanced stuff that maybe it won't reach for immediately, right? Or you can just help it again, use it to improve, but don't replace the style that you want your app to have and just the overall like differentiation that you can do. So again, I think don't forget about some of these languages like CSS or animations in the desire to get something up fast, right? Because you still want to make your app look polished and cohesive and something that's unique and differentiated from all the other apps out there.
Right. So I think what you're saying is not that CSS is important, is that good design is still important.
Fairly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you're an engineer, like you should know how to write good CSS too, right? And not just trust it that it's going to pull in the right tailwind stuff, right? If you want animations, you should know how animations work, not just assume that it's going to do it right, type thing.
Yeah, agreed. All right, I got one more. We have Chamath and some other tweets have been going around about how SaaS is dead. He shows this chart of like this Morgan Stanley SaaS index. I don't really know what that is. I think all of us realize that there's going to be issues for SaaS companies, but my take is that SaaS is not dead. Instead, it's the sort of overvalued proprietary software that was never that good anyways, but people had to use it for whatever reason. So an example, like I saw a guy tweeted out that he canceled his HubSpot subscription, which was like super expensive because he could rebuild something. We also have the example of Toby from Shopify building an app that showed his MRI or his X-ray, whatever. He built some software that required proprietary software to do that before. Those type of things, definitely, they're done. But when you think about something like a help desk or something that like most startups and companies pay for, There is absolutely no reason for you to rebuild Zendesk with AI. Like it makes absolutely no sense. You pay the $30 a seat or whatever it is, and it is completely 100% worth it so that you can focus on building what makes you money at your company. Like there, just because AI can code something quickly does not mean that there's no burden on you for that code. There's still like just the mental burden of thinking about how to get that up, of maintaining it, of fixing bugs, of improving the user experience, of like, when the server goes down, you got to fix it, of adding features, all this kind of stuff. It's a huge mental load. And so just because the code is easy does not mean that you should build it. So I think that SaaS companies that provide value at a reasonable price are going to be just completely fine. And I actually think we're going to see a lot more SaaS companies because with AI, we can do more things that make us money. And at the same time, we can put more money into things that save us time, like paying for valuable SaaS software.
Yep. No, 100%. And I think we got to remember the audience for a lot of this stuff too, right? So we as developers, we see SaaS and we're like, oh, I can build that. I know how to host. I already have Vercel. I can build something. I can host that quickly and I can do that for myself. But if you're the owner of like an HVAC company or some other like non-technical company, you're not going to look at a SaaS and be like, wait a minute, I can go build that myself with AI and host it and take care of all this stuff and know how it's done and do it just as well as Zendesk, right? Like it's going to be a question of level of effort. Maybe they have some developers in there who say they could do that, but again, it's going to be the level of effort of like, what's it worth it? If it's $30 for that SaaS app, that's going to be way more worth it than $30 of hosting and running your own software and stuff like that. There's still going to be costs on the other side of running that software, even if you do build it yourself. So I totally agree. It just comes down to like a cost analysis that each company will make of like, what's the effort and benefit of building it ourselves or doing it. It just opens up more opportunities of building it yourself if you are a bigger company and you have the resources to manage the hosting and all that and the app itself as it grows.
Yeah. And that will have an impact for sure.
Yes.
There will be people building stuff and that will take money away from SaaS companies, but not the really good ones. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So my last one is I think templates are going to be pretty big this year. And I'll kind of explain why with the review tool as well. But if you're wanting to build some software and AI agents do a really good job of copying existing patterns to work from it, instead of starting fresh, if you're building a whole new app or whatever, why wouldn't you want to start from a well-established template that already has everything set up for you, that already has a code structure that LLMs like, that already has all the patterns for database access and how you do your validations and everything? Why wouldn't you like just use that and then start from there? And so I think there could actually be an increase in like paid template starters that people want because they're like, oh, I know this is the exact tech stack that I want. It's already set up. I'm just going to go buy that for $20 or whatever. And then I'll start my app. And that's how I built the review app. And so I'll share my screen here. I always forget how to do this. So there's an open source agent orchestrator that I really liked their design and feel. It's on Electron. And I was like, you know what? And it was open source. I was like, I think I can take this and just repurpose it into a review app because I didn't want an orchestrator, but I did want an app that allows me to review my code across all my repos that I'm working in. And it's because sometimes I'll have an LLM work across multiple repos at the same time because I'll have it say, okay, I'm implementing this API endpoint, and then the front end needs to call it. And so that same LLM will be working across two repos, and I want to be able to review them kind of together. So I used that template of an existing app that was already well built and well set up and well designed and just repurposed it. And so now I have this review app that I can change like the full layout. I can see diffs of everything that changed. It actually classifies the files before I actually look at them. So if it's like let's see, it skipped a few. It's like a package.json. I don't really need to worry about that. Or like barrel file exports. The LLM can do all that. I don't need to waste my time focused on some things like that. So it actually classifies what I should be looking at first. And then I can run a deeper AI review on it as well. And so it'll annotate everything for me. And then I can click to copy, and it'll create a prompt that I can copy and paste to my LLM to go and fix any issue from here. But this was all built on top of that existing software. And so it actually reduced even more time of getting to a working thing. And I have a much more polished app. I've tried building some of these from scratch with no template, no nothing beforehand, and the output's not nearly as good as what I got here. So I do think templates are going to be a big, maybe not big, but I think we're going to see more of them coming forward to make it even easier and faster to spin stuff up.
Yeah, I on the templates part, I agree. I don't think paid templates are going to be a thing because I think we saw
Maybe not.
like with Tailwind how their business is kind of not doing well. I think we're seeing how if the AI can do something and it's not that hard and I kind of think a template is low value ish. But I do think the thing of like AI generating stuff like UI on the fly and stuff like that, I think we're a ways away from that because really what it's doing is it's just kind of rearranging templates anyways. So if you
Mhm.
give it something that's like blocks or some type of organization structure up front, and then it can maybe move those things around. That's a much better way for AI to be generating UI as opposed to just from scratch, like writing React code or something, even though it does a decent job of it. Yeah. But so for your review app, what what was the problem you were trying to solve there? Because to me, it looks like you just have a bunch of folders open with a unified diff. And is that something you couldn't achieve in like an editor?
It's not, well, I think it's more how I've changed to work. So I have all of my repos as submodules in a big workspace, which has like 13 submodules. And you can open up that workspace in VS Code and you can see all the changes, but you have to like, it only shows like 3 repos at once in your changes. And so you have to like select which submodule you want to see the changes for and stuff like that. I wanted a unified way where I can see all the changes across my entire workspace and quickly dive into them. And I'll share it again so we can look at it. Um, why is it not working? There we go. So now, like, I can see which ones don't have changes over here on the left. I can see what does. And this is all working in that one single workspace here where I just give it my workspace directory and it automatically pulls in all of the submodules for me. So the other way that I could do it is I could have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 like editors open for each one, but then I'm flipping through each one, trying to find the changes, and I can just switch back and forth really easily like this and get the new changes and run reviews, all that. The second thing is I really didn't like that same flow in GitHub. So like you could make the changes, push it up to GitHub and then go and review them, but you're dealing with like 7 different GitHub tabs or having to constantly switch back and forth to see them. So I just really like the ability to move back and forth super quickly as I'm usually working in at least 2 to 3 repos at the same time, as they're like connecting together. And then finally, it was this AI review tab. And so now, before I commit to Git, I can run another AI powered review, which is basically like Claude running in your as a GitHub action or whatever. But the benefit is I can just give it more different special instructions here. And I can run it, and then I can copy and paste its findings back to my LLM a whole lot easier than having to go to GitHub and go to the PR and find the comments that the Claude left and from that action and stuff like that. So it just really improves the speed of my reviews and the feedback of getting it back into the LLM to continue working on it. So I can just click copy and go paste that in there. And I get to see the annotations a whole lot better of what that's a little bug that we can fix, but a whole lot better here in line versus in the GitHub
Mhm.
uh,
Is,
review. So
isn't this amazing with AI what you can do? Because this would be, a couple years ago, this would be something an engineer spent months building and then like released as an open source project. It would be a big deal. But man, I mean, you built that in like what, an hour or two, or
I think like 2 hours, and then I've just been doing small fixes here and there. I mean, and a big thanks to Craft Agents. Let's see, let me find their website and share them, because I mean, they did 80% of the work here, and so you can see how similar my app is to their stuff, but theirs is more of an orchestrator. And so, I mean, I actually started fresh. I just pulled in their open source repo as a Git submodule. And I said, okay, go review this app. I really like the structure. I really like the design. And we're going to build a new one, but it's a review app. And I gave it all those parameters of like what I wanted the review app to do. But then it just went and rebuilt it with the same base structure and the same overall feel to it. So, I mean, a massive kudos to them, because I mean, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to what I have now without this open source project.
so this is how you're about to crack $1,000 in LLM usage this month because of
Yeah.
stuff like this, huh?
Yeah. Don't let anybody else hear that, but yes. So
Nice. All right. Well, I think one more thing that I wanted us to check out that I was sharing with you. Let's see. I'm gonna go here. There was this guy, Gabor Soter. He posted about an interviewing process because this is one thing I've been thinking about a lot is how do we interview people now? If I wanted to go interview somewhere, what would it be like? Are they still going to have me like whiteboard algorithms? Because that just makes no sense now. And I think a lot of companies are going to be very slow to change their process, but I really liked what he said about his process. So he has an intro's 30 minutes. They just kind of like chat and they have like, salary expectations, stuff like that. Then they do a whiteboarding for 90 minutes, show us something you built and that you're proud of, do a problem solving. And they said they wanted to find their strengths instead of searching for weaknesses, which I really like because at least in interviews that I've had before, I'll get stuck on like a coding problem, and then the interview just kind of ends there because it's like they don't have a process for like actually digging in and finding my real value. It's like you got stuck. Well, sorry. Um, so
oh,
then,
weaknesses don't really matter as much
yeah.
anymore with LLMs, right? So it's more important to try to find somebody's strengths to see how they can compound on that by using an LLMs, because LLMs can resolve a lot of our weaknesses. But if you're using them well and you think well and you're smart about it, you use an LLM to like completely remove your weaknesses because you're learning from it, you're asking it questions, you're using it to discover those things. So I think that's really smart to focus on strengths versus what a interviewee can't do.
So round three, they asked them to build something in one day, and they gave them a lot of freedom with it. You can use AI, whatever you want. And then at the end, they weren't really looking like, hey, did you like correctly handle this linked list, or did you reverse this binary tree? It's like, why did they build it, and get reason about it, and what are the problems with it? Is there taste to it? Is it flexible? Can they communicate about it? And really, in the age of AI, I just think these things are the most important. It's like, can you, with these new tools, build something of value for the company, communicate about it, reason around it, and provide value beyond just the code? So I really like this process. I hope a lot of more companies adopt this type of thing. I think it's going to happen very slowly. I know we've seen like in some of our comments, like, how do I get a job in the age of AI? I think it's going to be really tough for the next year, at least, because it's still going to be the old way. You're still going to have to be doing leak code problems and having these old interview processes. But then you see some of the companies that are on the frontier, like Shopify, they know what it takes or what AI can do, and they know that you don't need to be doing these algorithms. So they're going to be interviewing differently. And I've seen some people on Twitter saying, I think it was the engineering lead or whatever from Shopify saying, a lot of the like senior candidates that look like they have the best experience on paper turn out to not work as well with this new way of doing things. So I think one way of maybe standing out is using AI really creatively, building something really, really creative that has taste and create and differentiation and all these things, and putting it out there. I mean, if this were me, I would just be building stuff and building the biggest thing I possibly could. I mean, I don't know if you saw this this thing Canonide that I think Torsten Ball just posted it, but let's see, it's this isometric
Oh,
New York City thing.
I just added that to my to read list. But yeah,
Yeah, so he basically built this whole like Sim City thing of New York City in like just prompting. I mean, he didn't even write any code himself. And it was like
that's
a really
amazing.
big project. And he wrote all about it, how it wasn't just like it took a lot of engineering effort. The engineering effort just wasn't writing the code, it was a lot of the other stuff, like figuring out how to create these tiles and how to prompt Nano Banana because it was inconsistent. And then like just lots of thinking. So this type of thing I think would catch people's attention, and because it's a huge project where he really had to push the boundaries, that's what I would be doing if I wanted a job. I would build something like this and then I would show it around because it's
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah, you got to showcase your thinking with it. So like don't even just build something even if it looks cool and then just say here's what I built, right? Like you got to write about how you built it even if you didn't write yourself a single line of code, right? You have to show that you understand it and your thinking process. And that's what those interviewers are looking for too in that interviewing process. They're trying to just see how you think, not necessarily what you built, because I mean that's all that's written by LLMs now these days is more about how you think versus what you've done or like yeah, what you're doing.
Yeah, and I would think about, let's say you wanted to build a big project like this before LLMs. This would take months. What
Years.
could you build? Yeah, years. But let's say you want to take even 1 month. What would be so hard to build that it would take you 30 days straight of just nonstop using Opus 4.5 because it was so complex and required so much input from you and creativity? Like, what could you make? Don't just like go build starter apps and boilerplate stuff that the LLM can spit out in an hour because it's so boring and useless these days. But what would be if you took the same amount of time you used to take to write all the code and instead spent that time thinking and being creative and finding out the edges of the model and how you can get around that? Like, what could you build? That's a hard problem, honestly. I don't even know where I would start with that, but I think that's the right problem to be trying to solve.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think to do that while all these LLM labs are subsidizing costs, you need to invest in yourself if you're looking for a job and grab the 200 a month max plan from Claude so that you can have the freedom to do this and you're not always hampered by rate limits and stuff like that. So like I think you got to be able to see it as an investment in your career and in your path, but and do it now until while prices don't go up, because I think prices will probably go up unless we can figure out how to make LLM usage just a whole lot cheaper in general, because I mean so many labs are subsidizing the cost at this point, and that's why I spent $900,000 on AMP versus the 200 a month on Claude, because AMP's not subsidizing the cost in a monthly plan. Cool. Yeah. The only other there's a good article by called Agent Psychosis by Armin. Let's see. What's his Armin? I don't know how to pronounce his last name,
Ronacher
but
or something like that.
yeah. So anyway, I really like this. So, and this is kind of goes back to the why I don't think orchestrators are going to be it. So there's a new orchestrator called Gastown. They got really popular. But this is from the documentation. You can use polecats without the refinery and even without the witness or the deacon. Just tell the mayor to shut down the rig and sling work to the polecats with the message that they are to merge to main directly, or the polecats can submit MRs and then the mayor can merge them manually. It's really up to you. I won't read the rest, but like, why are we doing this? Completely pointless to be using an orchestrator like this where you have to learn a completely different way of thinking, right? Or all this
That will
different
be obsolete in
terminology.
3 months.
Right. So I just think it's completely unnecessary. Just be working with the models. I mean, use skills. I think skills are good for now until models get good enough that they don't need them, and use the tools that these labs are giving you, but don't go and invest your time into something else like this that you're going to spend hours more time trying to figure it out than you would if you just like went and built something, right? And it's just going to be lost mental time trying to figure out all this stuff. So it's just not worth it. And like beads, this guy did beads too, which is like a memory management for tasks. And I tried it out. It was good, but it's at like 250,000 lines of code right now. And I mean, it just really is vibe coded without much consideration or thought into it. And again, it just didn't really solve a need for me. Beads just kept track of tasks in a SQLite database. It was really not that hard, not that big of a thing. And 250,000 lines of code to do that just felt like it was getting too bloated, and not necessary. But anyway, that's a good article to read. Highly recommend it. So
Yeah, one of the so he talks about his Dark Materials, which is a series that I really love, and he talks about the LLMs being a demon, which is like this basically a person's soul outside themselves in animal form. I don't agree that that's what LLMs are like, but I'm gonna look past that. What I really liked about this is he talked about how when he first figured out about or he first started doing agentic coding, he like couldn't sleep because he was getting all these dopamine hits from building stuff. And I can totally relate to this. And just being like, holy crap, I can build so much stuff. I'm thinking of so many things. How could I possibly sleep when this like new tool is at my fingertips and I could just build whatever I want? And there's two things that are interesting about that to me. The first is that like I went through that and then I got to the same place that he got to, which was I built all this stuff and none of it was actually that useful. And I actually didn't end up using very much of it. It was more like the dopamine hit of building something was the fun part. But as soon as you got to the point where you needed to actually make it like a production tool or whatever, like at least for me, I kind of just stopped because it's not the fun part anymore. And
right.
really, that's the most important part. And then he also talks about, well, what do you say? He said it became so easy to build something, and in comparison, it became so much harder to actually use or polish it, which has also been my experience where you kind of keep wanting that dopamine hit of like the AI agent doing something quickly for you, and you think that that's how you feel productive, and you think that that's what you need to chase. But really, what you should be chasing is the hard part that's not fun and that's not firing your dopamine. And so it'll be interesting to see how I've seen other people go through this on Twitter too. Like people like, I can't sleep. I've been like building so much stuff with LLMs. And what's really happening is they're just churning out a bunch of junk that's useless. But they think is cool because they've never built something like that. So it'll be interesting to see when this sort of comes full circle to where there's so much just slop, not even slop. It's just like the same
Useful.
stuff
Yeah.
that's not used. Like we already have one of those. We don't need another one.
Right.
And to where we get to the point like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should stop just generating so much code now.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like it's like a New Year's resolution. You say, I'm going to lose weight, but then you just kind of slowly realize I'm not going to. Or I'm going to exercise, and you slowly don't do it. That's what all these new like personal softwares are, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to build this because I'm going to use it all the time and it's going to make my whole life better. I'm going to run my business better. And then like you do it and then you're like, I'm just, never mind. I'm not really using
Yeah.
it. And
Actually, it's not that good. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Because you didn't actually invest in building a proper product that actually makes it sticky and worthwhile. So I agree. I do think AI is going to be a massive addictive thing in general, and even more so than social media, because in everything it can give you that dopamine hit because it like in coding, but also in just normal conversations of searching and looking stuff up for you and answering questions well and telling you how wonderful you are throughout to like all of that does something to our brains that we're going to have to deal with that down the road too. So there's just lots of implications of the addictiveness and that dopamine hit that we're all going to get. And software engineers are going to get it worse because we're using it to really drastically change our job too.
I wonder if it's going to be, I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be like a video game where it's like really exciting at first, but then as you move along, you're just kind of less excited about it and you maybe finish the game out of habit, but it's really, you're like, it's not quite as exciting as it was in the beginning. I wonder if it's going to be like that because for me personally, I do not get as much dopamine from just asking questions. I still love building stuff quickly, but I understand that what I'm building is not worth anything until I do the hard part. And
Hmm.
so it's just much less dopamine for me now. I'm
Fair
hoping other
enough.
people get to that point too.
I hope so too. But I mean, I think it's also personality of like, oh, I can do this. It's going to make money and going to do awesome in 5 days. And then it doesn't. Then you're like, okay, next thing. It's going to be awesome. Do it in 5 days. And like, you just don't get the reality check of like,
Yeah, but you will like after like the
eventually
10th one, like because
you
I've
hope
done that. I've built lots of stuff that I was so excited about, not with AI. This is like, many years ago
before.
that I thought was
Yeah.
going to do so great and did absolutely nothing and I learned those hard lessons. And I think people are now just learning these things that engineers have already gone through, you know.
Yep. Hope so.
We'll see. All right, well those were our 2026 predictions and maybe we'll come back next year and see if we were wrong on these or not. But of course,
Probably.
just like the title of the show, you're absolutely right. We were absolutely right about all those predictions. So that's that. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
Wes.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the
Cool.
next one.
All right. See you, man.